Long before there were pharmacies, there were healers. Mothers, fathers, and neighbors who turned to the earth for wellness. Welcome to the Reality of Herbal Therapy podcast with Jim Applegate. Each week we explore the plants, traditions, and time-honored remedies that connect us to that ancient wisdom, so you can bring it into your modern life.
Welcome to the Reality of Herbal Therapy podcast. So have you ever heard that joke? How can you tell which is more painful, childbirth or kidney stone? If you ask a woman, she's never going to want to do a kidney stone again, so you know which one is worse. And the reason that is because kidney stones are massively, massively painful. I've talked a lot in the past about kidney health and bladder health because it's one of the things that I've struggled with my entire life, and so it comes up a lot. But I realized I don't really talk much about kidney stones because it's something that I don't remember ever having. But a lot of people ask about them. It's a really common thing that we get asked about. So I'm like, I should do an episode on kidney stones. Thinking about kidney stones is they form in an unhealthy urinary system. So when your kidneys are not healthy, that's when you get a buildup mineral balls. It's like a ball of it's a mineral crystal kind of thing. And the thing about crystals, if you've ever seen them, they're sharp. And a kidney stone, if you've ever seen what one looks like, it looks like here in New Mexico we have a seed that's called a goat head. That's what kidney stones look like. If you've ever stepped on a goat head, the pain is horrendous because it is this tiny, sharp thing that just, when you step on it, it shoots through your foot and the pain is immense and it doesn't come out easy. That's what a kidney stone looks like. In fact, my sister had a little bowl at her house, and in this bowl, it looked like she had a fossilized goat head. And I asked her about it, and she's like, "Oh, that's my kidney stone that I passed." And it was like, yeah, that's pretty gross, but it looked like a fossilized goat head. That's what a kidney stone is. It's not some, smooth round stone that passes through. It's got these spikes, and that's where all that pain comes from. Is as these spikes go through, it's poking holes, tearing things, and it's just really painful. So they form in that depleted kidney, and your depleted kidneys or your bladder or wherever, they form in that depleted system when it's weakened. So kidney stones form basically when there's, like you have very high mineral content in your urine or something like that, and it basically sits there in the kidneys for long enough that the crystals start to come together and start to form, and that's how you get kidney stones. And then the calcium starts pulling. Most common kind, calcium pulls what's called oxalic acid or uric acid, either one of those. And if you have a high amount of calcium in your body, and not the kind of calcium that your body needs. So this is calcium that's pulled from different things, and we'll go into detail about where that calcium comes from, or it could be phosphate or something like that. These stones form, and then out of like a bunch of crystals coming together. So kidney stones can range from just a small piece of sand. I know when Lynn's grandmother came to live with Dr. James and Veronica, they started giving her Bladney because she had all sorts of other health issues. And when they started giving her Bladney, it was like she was urinating sand. And those are like the starts of kidney stones, that sand. So the Bladney was helping to move that out, which was a really good thing. So a kidney stone can be from like just a grain of sand, and you may urinate it out and not even know that you had it, to stones that are basically so big that they've like lodged themselves in the tubes between your kidneys and your bladder, or from your bladder to the urethra. They're stuck, and they actually have to it takes like surgery, or they use sound waves to try and break up those crystals to see if you can get it to pass. So when it comes to kidney stones, you don't want any of them. Whatever form it comes in, you don't want it. It is just nasty. So let's talk about how the kidney forms get caused or built up in the body. So I mentioned you have the high mineral salts and the minerals crystals floating around in your urine, and they sit there for a while, and so it's all got to sit there. So the higher mineral content comes from being dehydrated. If you've ever noticed when you're dehydrated, your urine is much darker. Sometimes it can smell worse. There's all sorts of things going on when you're dehydrated. So you want to be sure that you are sufficiently hydrating yourself. And that's part of, when in just about every episode that we have, we talk about hydration, water. And you want water, you don't want other things to drink because water is what our body uses. There are some things that help water with absorption, like just a little bit of lemon, tea, honey, herbal teas, things like that. But the more water you get, the better it is. Now, you can't overdo it on water, but it takes an awful lot to overdo it on water. So I would stick with the more water you can get, the better, because most of us are chronically dehydrated. That's why Bladney is such a big seller. Is simply it helps the average person ignore the fact that they're dehydrated because it cleans it out the kidneys and helps with a whole lot of things. And one of the things that Dr. James pointed out is he likes you to drink a lot of water when you take your herbs and Bladney. And he's like, sometimes I think that just adding the water does as much good as the herbs. So hydration is really, really important. There are certain things in our diet that can cause kidney stones. One that Dr. James always mentioned was coffee and tea. If you're drinking a lot of coffee or a lot of tea, that puts a lot of that oxalic acid. So if you have any mineral content, the oxalic acid is sitting there and it's like, oh, look at this. And it comes together and makes those crystals and starts those crystals forming. So black tea, green tea, iced tea is a really common thing, but that one is almost always black tea. So you want to cut back on your tea consumption. And while we're talking about tea, kombucha has become very, very popular simply because that fermented liquid becomes very easy. It creates a wonderful digestive environment for our stomachs. It has a great pH. The problem with kombucha is if you're dealing with kidney stones, it's sort of like throwing gasoline on a flame because most kombuchas are made with black tea. If they're not, they're using green tea, which is a little bit better. You can get herbal ones, but I was talking to somebody that makes kombucha, and she was saying if you don't have the tea in it, then the SCOBY doesn't survive more than once or twice. So kombucha basically is adding to your kidney issues. It actually will raise the pH in the kidneys. It creates that environment. So kombucha yes, it is wonderful, but if you have kidney issues, it's probably not. There are other ways to go to get your fermented foods in you besides drinking kombucha. And a lot of people drink things like that, like teas, iced teas, kombuchas, all of those. If you notice, the jars and bottles are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and somebody will drink all of that thinking they're getting their hydration, but they're dumping all sorts of the building blocks for kidney stones into their body. It doesn't digest, so your body has to urinate it out, and so it comes through the kidneys, and you're just dealing with it. So along those lines is soda. And I know we love our sodas. My dad drank a lot of soda. In fact, the week before he passed away, he went to the hospital, and like everybody brings you flowers and, oh, I'm sorry you're sick and in the hospital and not doing so well. Everybody brought my dad a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke. He had like 8 or 10 bottles. The doctor came in, he's like, whoa, that's a lot of Diet Coke. So the average American drinks a lot of soda. And the thing about soda is We talked about dehydration, and so you have that environment where the urine is extremely high in minerals and stuff. Well, the thing about sodas, the carbonation actually, once it hits the kidneys, it the kidneys have to use pull water to process it, to deal with it. And so for every cup of soda you drink, you have to drink 20 cups of water or something that hydrates, that doesn't take away from the body. So soda, it just sucks it out. And then soda is also really high in oxalic acid, depending on what they have in it. The sugars are have a lot of minerals. They crystallize easy. There's a lot of salt. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff in soda. I'm, you know, I'm I know people that drink a lot of soda, like my dad and other people, but if you can cut back on it, you really should. Soda is really, really tough, especially if you've become prone to kidney stones. If you get kidney stones and you don't fix the environment, they're going to come again and come again and come again, and you don't want to have to go through that ever. And so cutting back on the soda will really make a difference. So another thing that causes kidney stones is a high meat diet. I have a good friend who's very, very much a carnivore. He tries to follow the carnivore diet, and I've looked into it, and the carnivore diet does help you lose a lot of weight. And there are pluses and minuses, but the carnivore, for your body to process it, it has to pull minerals from your body. So if you're not high in minerals when you're drinking or eating meat, and a lot of it, then your body has to pull minerals from somewhere. And if it doesn't have it in the body, it's going to pull it from the bones. So the carnivore diet is really, really rough on the body. So is like a keto diet that's really high in animal proteins, because the body has to pull it from somewhere. So you're actually depleting your bones. It has to pull calcium, and then you have that calcium floating in your system. And if it's too much, then it ends up in the kidneys. And remember, we mentioned that the oxalic acid and calcium start to mix to break those crystals, and you get kidney stones. So cutting back on meat or not eating tons of it is really helpful if you're prone to kidney stones. Another thing that causes kidney stones is processed foods. The more processed a food is, the more additives there are, the more things that are put in there that your body can't cope. Your body basically can't process it, so it has to try and pass it through. So then it ends up sitting in the kidneys where everything is sitting, and while it's waiting, it's going to start to crystallize. And once you have crystals, you have kidney stones. Another food item that can cause kidney stones is chocolate. So chocolate is not as big as some of the other, things but chocolate, if you're eating a lot of chocolate or drinking hot cocoa or anything like that, it adds to the issue that you're having. It depletes the urinary tract. So cocoa is another one that's really tough on the body. So if you noticed, all of the things that I mentioned, the tea, coffee, carbonated drinks, high meat, extremely processed foods, basically they put a lot of work on your body, on the kidneys and on that system. And when that system can't handle the load that it's already having to deal with, it loses its resilience and its ability to handle those crystals. And then you get those crystals starting to build up, and minerals start passing through, and that's when those kidney stones start to form. So by the time you're forming a kidney stone, your urinary tract has been undernourished for quite a long time. That stone is basically a symptom of an undernourished urinary system. So let's talk about some of the warning signs and what to do about them. So one of the first signs of kidney stones is if you take your hands and put them behind in your back and go just a little bit above your hips, that's where your kidneys are. Right there, if you're feeling kind of like pressure, like there's kind of a pressure in that area, there's probably the kidneys are either weakened or they're starting to get to the point where stones can form. And that's when we would start adding Bladney. Just a little bit of Bladney really helps take off that pressure that you're feeling. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, I've been sitting too long," or my muscles hurt. And at the beginning, I mentioned I had kidney problems. I've always had kidney problems. One of my kidneys is actually much smaller than the other one, and the tiny one is doing 90% of the work. So my kidneys are always working extra hard. But the side that has the really small one, if I'm lax on taking my Bladney or anything, I can actually feel that pressure often because it's that kidney is working so much harder than the other one. So when that after you get that that pressure in your lower back and it starts to radiate outwards, you can actually kind of feel it coming out and around to the sides. That's that's quite often a sign that you have a stone and it's trying to move through your kidneys. It'll be putting pressure, and that pain is from what I understand is really intense. Most likely, like I said, I've got that one kidney that's bad, and if I forget Bladney, I can feel that, and it radiates up into my ribs, and it almost feels like it's going down my leg. The pain is really not comfortable, and that's just the start of a kidney stone. So when you have that pain, it's time to start paying attention to see if there are some other warning signs of kidney pain or kidney stones. If you've got that pain and it's there, just taking a couple Bladney will help it feel better. But if you have some of these warning signs and it continues, then that's the start of a kidney stone, and you want to deal with it quickly. You don't want to get to the point where you're in the hospital and they're having to do surgery to break up a kidney stone or whatever. The the whole point of herbs and taking herbs is to take care of it quickly and get it over with and get better and get back to life. So look for these early warning signs. So the first one, and a lot of people will push it off as, oh, it's probably just getting the start of a kidney infection, is burning or pain with urination. And sometimes people will go and they'll get a test and they're like, well, no, you don't have a kidney infection. Well, you're on the start to a kidney infection. So even if they say you don't have a kidney infection, but it's burning, you want to deal with it. Take some Bladney and take care of it. The next one would be blood in the urine. Once you see blood in the urine, that's because those spikes have started tearing through your kidneys or your bladder or whatever, and you're bleeding inside. That stone is moving, and as it moves, it tears things. If you have a frequent urge to urinate, it's like, oh, I gotta go now, and then you get to the bathroom and nothing happens. For men, there's prostate issue, but it could also be a kidney stone issue or something with the kidneys. And the nice thing is with herbs, whenever we talk about it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, the same thing always takes care of it. So whether you have that frequent urge to urinate and nothing happens, and whether it's prostate, a kidney stone, a bladder infection, doesn't matter. Bladney takes care of all of them. So if you have nausea and vomiting with that pain, that's when it's like, this is bad. This is, it's not, Bladney will take care of it, and you want to start on the Bladney, but you may want to seek other help. It's not something you can do on your own. And then fever or chills, signs of an infection, that's when you want to seek help. Start the Bladney immediately because you want to start dealing with the problem, but you also want to seek help because it's getting beyond what the herbs can do. So we kind of talked about a fever, kidney pain, like extreme pain, nausea, vomiting, stuff like that. Basically, think back to once that pressure starts, that kidney pressure, that downward pressure in the bladder, needing to urinate often, that's when you want to start the Bladney. You want to start taking care of it quickly. So I've talked a lot about Bladney. Bladney is, when just recently somebody posted on one of our Facebook things a big thing about Jesus, and it had nothing to do with the herbs. But when I look at the herbs, there's several of them that are miracle workers in my view. Tissue mend, arthritis, infection, Hayaz. Bladney is also one of those miracle workers. So Dr. James formulated Bladney to help feed and nourish the urinary tract, the kidneys, the bladder, everything that there is. It even helps a little bit with the adrenals, which sit on top of the kidneys. Basically, it's to feed and nourish that system of the body. And when you have that healthy system, then you don't get stones. So let's talk a little bit about what's in Bladney. So you've got gravel root. Basically, the reason they call it gravel is because it would help take care of those kidney stones and the gravel that forms in the bladder and stuff. Like we talked about Lynn's grandmother, Veronica's mother, that sand that she was getting rid of, that gravel root is one of the main things that help take care of it. Bladney also has marshmallow root. Marshmallow root is one of those amazing herbs. Basically, it doesn't do much as far as health and healing, but it soothes and calms down inflamed tissue. It soothes anything that's like just inflamed or sore or anything like that. Marshmallow root kind of like, it's like that, the calming effect that you're wanting. And that's why it's in so many of our different formulas, because it's very taggable. So when you mix marshmallow root with these other herbs that go straight to the bladder and kidneys, it soothes the kidneys and helps them, makes it easier to pass kidney stones if you have to, or anything like that. Corn silk basically breaks up those crystals. It breaks up the uric acid. It helps breaks those crystals up so they're not as big. So it helps if you have kidney stones forming, then the corn silk starts to break them apart. Cleavers is another herb that's in it. Basically, it helps your body deal with water retention, blood pressure. It helps move the water. Like high blood pressure caused by the kidneys is because you have blood that has to be filtered through the kidneys, and it extracts the water and the waste stuff out of it. And so the cleavers helps that cleansing to happen. Juniper berry is also one that does that. It's a diuretic. It helps clear out the kidneys and the bladder. It helps clean out any gunk that's gotten in there, especially when we're talking about kidney stones. It helps get rid of those. Parsley leaf is very high in potassium. And potassium is what our kidneys use to filter the blood and everything. And uva ursi is also in that. And that's one that has been used for centuries for any urinary tract issue, bladder problems, kidney problems, stones, anything like that. That's why uva ursi is in there. So let's go back to parsley. I probably should have mentioned parsley last for this reason. If you have kidney stones, one of the amazing things about parsley is if you make it into a tea, and we've done several episodes, I'll put the link down in the show notes. Parsley tea actually smooths off those crystals. It starts to break up the crystals, but it also smooths off those points, and it makes it easier to pass kidney stones. A friend of mine called me up one day and he's like, I've got this friend that is just dying of kidney stones. And they basically said, well, go home and drink a lot of water and hope it passes soon. My friend's like, he's in so much pain and I don't know what to tell him. And I'm like, just, on the way home, or have somebody stop and get a bunch of parsley and make it into a tea and drink as much of that as you can. And he said that his friend, basically, it hadn't moved for 2 or 3 days and he was in extreme pain. And within 3 hours of starting the parsley tea, it smoothed it off and he was able to pass that stone. So parsley tea is amazing when it comes to kidney stones and anything like that. So Bladney as a whole, it helps that entire system, smooths out the crystals, the spikes, breaks up uric acid. So Bladney is just amazing for the bladder and kidneys, especially when it comes to kidney stones. So how much Bladney should you be taking? Well, if you've got a kidney stone, when we talk about that, take 3 capsules every hour until the pain subsides. So whether it's some other thing or a kidney stone, 3 capsules every hour until the pain goes away. So, we talked about hydration. If you can do parsley tea, that is like the thing to do if you've got kidney stones. Taking 3 Bladney capsules every hour and drink parsley tea. Tea honey is also really helpful. If the pain is really, really bad and it's hard and the pain is extreme, you can add some like 2 Throbbie's capsules every time you take the Bladney, and that will help with the pain. If the stone is if you're showing signs of infection, fever, you know, a lot of blood, if you're bleeding or anything like that, you want to add fection to it because you're basically, you're tearing open yourself, and the bladder or the kidneys is, it's the organ that's basically sitting there smothered in urine all day, and you're cutting a hole in it to let whatever is in the urine out into your body, which is always a prone for infection. Sometimes people pass kidney stones and shortly thereafter will get like a kidney infection or a bladder infection because of the ripping and tearing that went on. So basically, if you have one, that's what I would suggest. 3 Bladney every hour until the pain goes away, and parsley tea or tea honey to help to increase the hydration in the body. Throbbie's as needed, and infection if there's signs of infection like fever or anything like that. So what happens afterwards? So, like we talked about at the beginning, a kidney stone is a symptom of a weakened system. So you want to build it up, strengthen it. I would take 2 Bladney every day for at least 2 months. Basically, you're wanting to rebuild your kidneys and bladder so that it isn't a spot where those kidney stones can come back. You want it to make it like healthy and really healthy. And then if you start feeling that pain, take more Bladney. The nice thing about all of the herbs is because they're in capsules. The herbs are basically locked and preserved inside this little tiny capsule, and so they last for a really long time. Bladney is one that we always keep on hand, especially for me because of my kidney issues. We always want to have Bladney in the house. So if you're doing the Bladney and everything, and you start to feel that, increase your Bladney. You want to don't let it get bad again. Like get on top of it quick. Cut back on anything that causes the stones that we talked about: coffee, tea, kombucha, carbonated drinks. If you're eating a heavy meat diet, cut back on the meat for a little while because that'll help your body to kind of deal with those crystals that are forming. And then tea honey. And some people like parsley tea all the time. And if you're one of those people, totally, totally works. Have parsley tea all the time, especially if you're wanting to build your kidneys and stuff. The parsley tea will help with cleansing and keep your kidneys functioning properly. So, when we talk about the kidneys, the whole urinary tract, basically it's the part of our body that is, like I said, smothered in urine all day, 24 hours a day. It is dealing with urine. And there's a lot of stuff that the body is filtering and trying to get rid of. So, our urinary tract is really, really resilient. If you keep it nourished, it can handle a lot. So, do what it takes to keep it nourished and keep it healthy. So then you don't have to deal with kidney stones. Kidney stones are not really a mystery. They form in a depleted, weakened kidney or bladder, especially if you're chronically dehydrated or, you've got other things going on that just continue day after day after day. It just builds up until you have a kidney stone. But, the solution is pretty easy. It's not that it's wonderful and the pain is horrible, but Bladney, parsley tea will clear out kidney stones really fast. Um, so if you have any questions about, kidney stones or dealing with kidney stones, I'd love to talk with you and help you out with it. Your kidneys don't fail. They do what they're supposed to do. And when they're weakened, that's when stones form. So it's been a pleasure talking with you again. I love sharing all of this stuff with you. And I will talk to you next time.
You've been listening to the Reality of Herbal Therapy podcast with Jim Applegate. Visit drugfreehelpstore.com to download your free Healer in Every Home guidebook and explore herbal formulas that support your health naturally. Be sure to follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves natural living as much as you do. Thanks for joining us, and remember, true healing starts at home.
It is not the intent of professional herbal instruction or any persons associated therewith to diagnose or prescribe. The intent is only to offer herbal information for your consideration. In the event you use this information without your doctor's approval, you are prescribing for yourself, which is your God-given right. But professional herbal instruction or any persons associated herewith assume no responsibility. The claims and statements made on this podcast have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.